everything that grows around us has value and nutrition. So in reading and hearing what you were speaking about, especially about like leafy greens and milk supply, I mean, those really, they grow everywhere. We have wild lettuces. There's things like lamb's quarters that are high in iron and vitamin C, violet leaves. So they're really out, there's all these foods all around us that we can take advantage of nursing or not nursing.
I mentioned that it's springtime, and I've always had this idea, wouldn't it be great if mothers could grow galactagogues, herbs in their own garden? So, because there's two reasons. One is that it's very expensive to always be buying the supplements, and for some mothers,
Mhm.
that exceeds their budget. And and the other reason is I just think they're more powerful. That was my personal experience when I was a breastfeeding mother. And you got all
Yes.
excited about the idea that you could share this idea with moms as well. So that's my starting point. Where's yours?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. I think it's really empowering to grow your own foods and your own herbs. So I feel like even if you maybe don't grow enough to meet 100% of your needs, it's it gives you that power over your own health and your own making your own medicines, and it will lead you to do even more things for yourself and take even more control over your own health and your own life. So, and it's just good for you to garden too, even if it's just on a very small scale. So, um, and everything that grows around us has value and nutrition. So in reading and hearing what you were speaking about, especially about like leafy greens and milk supply, I mean, those really, they grow everywhere. We have wild lettuces. There's things like lamb's quarters that are high in iron and vitamin C, violet leaves. So they're really out, there's all these foods all around us that we can take advantage of nursing or not nursing. And having a new baby, being pregnant or giving birth are great times to expand your diet and make healthier choices and add in those good things into your life. And gardening doesn't have to be difficult. We were talking about just starting with, pots on your porch or your balcony or back step. You could easily grow things like fenugreek seeds. We were talking about that, and eat the greens. And it really sounds like would be a pretty easy plant to grow.
Yeah, it grows apparently it grows, whether you're living in a colder or warmer area.
Mhm.
So it's almost springtime. So we were thinking this would be such a great time to talk about things that moms could begin right now to
Yeah.
how they could either be thinking about what to grow or how they could even begin now to grow some things that afterwards they could use just as little bits every day in their diet. And I want to just say that personally, this was really big for me because, as you know, I had chronic low milk supply all throughout my years and years of breastfeeding. And one of the summers that I had the easiest time with my milk supply was when I moved into a house with a garden. And there were a lot of dandelions growing all around. And I had, read a book that in traditional European herbalism that people would eat a certain amount of dandelion leaves fresh from the garden every day. You just walk around and pick some and eat them. So I started doing that, and my milk supply just became so stable and so abundant. And dandelion leaves, come on.
Yeah. And those are going to be starting to come up depending on where you're living. I'm in the Midwest, so I'm starting to see little things starting to pop up out of the ground, and dandelions will be one of the first ones. And that's a traditional, spring tonic. Eat some dandelion leaves, and you don't have to necessarily grow them on purpose, but they're probably all around you. So,
Or you could
but
grow them on purpose. You,
yeah,
you could you could take a pot and plant them all in there and just not allow them to flower, because when you flower you've
yeah.
got the seeds everywhere, then they're weeds. But if you just make a pot and people actually also made syrup with the flower heads
Yes,
because of
yeah,
their high amount of vitamin C, etc. And yeah, very cool.
yeah. You can use all parts of the plant. Yeah.
So let's just brainstorm a little bit and about so about what moms could do now to start. So, what I experimented with last year was something I'd never heard of before, actually, and that is sweet potato or yam
Mm-hmm.
leaves, sweet potato leaves.
Yes.
So I took a sweet potato and I just did the old toothpicks and
Mm.
put it in a jar of water and I just let it take root and then the leaves started coming up, so that when it was then warm outside I could just plant it right in the garden, and I very soon I had a big bush of sweet potato leaves. And I would imagine you could do this probably in most soils. What do you think?
I would think so. Yeah, and probably even in a big pot if
Right.
you didn't have space. Yeah. I've seen even growing like white potatoes or other types of potatoes, yeah, in giant pots, or maybe even lighting them with a plastic bag, so it'd be easy to then take out and open up, and
Harvest. You're talking about harvesting.
yeah, yeah, the dirt would be contained. Yeah.
So the sweet potato leaves are used as a food in Asia. I didn't know that. So they can be boiled like spinach, and they can be sautéed.
Okay. Good. Yeah.
You can plant two or three of these, and you'll have an abundance of leaves instead of buying spinach or collards or kale if you wanted to. I mean, I always think of low budget moms because I was extremely low budget when I had kids, so finding ways to inexpensively get powerful nutrition is really a high priority.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So are the leaves galactagogue? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That's exciting though, to use the leaves. I think a lot of fruits and vegetables, we think about the actual fruit or vegetable, not the leafy tops that we can use as well, and we get even more use out of them.
So, where do you come in with the edible garden? What are some of your favorite edibles?
Well, I know we talked about purslane, and that
Right.
one is, yeah, which of course you could grow purposefully, or you could just find growing around you. And it's, once you identify it, it's easy to find, and it has kind of a nice lemony taste. And I believe it has the highest amount of omega 3s
Already.
of plants.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's that's good. It's listed as being a galactagogue herb as well, and you could easily add that to salads and probably cook it in things too. And that grows around here. That one is, I think that's a very good one to
I
have around.
I found purslane listed in Dioscorides' collection of herbal medicine from about 2,000 years ago. So whenever you find a galactagogue herb that's like listed in
Hmm.
these ancient herbals, this
That's, yeah,
yes, there's a lot of verification that a lot of generations of women have used it successfully.
yeah, yeah, yes. And the lettuces too are easy. I mean, there's wild lettuces, but there's all sorts of ones they're very easy to grow, and you can do those in pots too. And just every day you can go out and pick some lettuce.
That's
And
right. Yeah. Arugula is a very good one. Not everybody likes the garlicky taste, but
mhm.
that's very easy to grow all throughout the spring and summer, and that's very good. So, yeah, another one that a lot of people aren't aware of is hollyhock. You can take the leaves and cook them like spinach, very delicious, and they are actually really yummy. And the flowers can be used as tea, can be dried and used as tea. And yeah, they're also listed 2,000 years ago as the cultivated marshmallow that also
Yeah.
is a galactagogue. And
Hmm.
hollyhocks are just beautiful and easy to plant in most gardens.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, easy to grow, nutritious, and have good benefits for nursing moms too. So that would be a good one to add in.
And
And
we have nettle, of course, which nobody
mhm,
wants in their
yeah.
garden, but it's good to have around if you can possibly do it. And
Hmm.
and basil. Basil
Yes.
is
Yeah, and basil, that was one I was not as aware of as using for breastfeeding purposes. But it is very easy to grow and it smells wonderful. It has a lot of good uses, and it sounds like it's sort of it's a more relaxing herb. So it's probably helping with that milk letdown. Yeah. So what's your experience been with basil and nursing?
Well, my experience has been, well, first of all, I found it listed in herbals from pretty much all around the
Mm-hmm.
world, and I um, used it for myself, and it was very, very powerful. And the wonderful thing about it was that I didn't have to use it in large quantities. I would just take some dried basil and sprinkle it on my whatever it was I was eating, and that was very effective. And I used it in conjunction with marjoram, which is another relaxing herb.
Uh-huh.
And what I've heard from mothers, though, is you have a lot of mothers who, let's say, don't have low milk supply, but they just need a boost, like because they're going back to
Mm-hmm.
work or something. And so, taking along some hummus and taking along some margarine and basil, just using
Mm-hmm.
these spices. That's just an example of two that you can use that are very
Mm-hmm.
effective. So you start adding in these spices to your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and all of a sudden, the supply problems that you were having go away. So that's the kind of feedback that I've gotten from others who don't necessarily have, as I said, the chronic low milk supply problem, but who
Mm-hmm.
just have, let's say, going back to work, pumping, noticing that their milk supply is decreasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think a lot of working mothers do see that. Most of them do. They see some dips in supply. And you had mentioned the hummus, which chickpeas make, that's what we
Right.
make hummus from, and they're a galactagogue food as well. So, and
And
that's
yeah, and in theory, and they're often spiced with basil.
yeah, yeah. And then yeah, like you said, you could add your own herbs to that or anything else that you're eating, and yeah, hopefully help boost milk supply at the same time.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
so many. It's almost hard to know where to start, isn't it? We could go to
Mhm.
the umbel flowers and
But there's so many things to choose from. So depending on, cultural preferences or where you live, there's always going to be things that you can find to enhance your diet.
so if you were to recommend something to the mothers in your area, what would you be thinking about? Have you considered that?
Yeah, well, I think
I
it's
noticed
very
it's
common.
snowy, right? If I look behind
Yeah,
you, it's
yeah.
snowing. Yes, cold.
Well, it has snowed. It's melting now, but I think today is in the 40s, so it's not, the snow won't be hanging around too long. I think there there's so many things that people will use as far as like to help with milk supply. And culturally, I think oats and fenugreek tend to be the most common things that people will do. And yes, you could grow those. But there's I like the idea of the sweet potato too. That's great. And just having just the leafy greens that you could grow. And as far as growing things too, I think dill and fennel are easy to grow too. And those you could eat the leafy green part. You could, wait for it to seed and collect the seed part and use that. And sometimes it's just nice to have them growing around you, and just starting to incorporate them in your diet and then see where that leads. But those would be easy ones to grow either in a garden or just in a pot. You just sprinkle some seeds and keep them watered and they will grow. And basil too. That's very easy to
and
grow.
and a lot of
Mm.
these you can get as starters, right?
Mhm.
At your
Yeah.
local
Yes. Yeah, gardens. Yeah.
garden store, which we call
Yeah, and they're
the Grange around here. So some of them that you can get as starters too is like the marshmallow plant. Those are
yeah.
those are fantastic, and again, you have leaves that most people would never think of using, but you could use them. You could cook them like spinach.
Yeah. Yeah. And chamomile would be another one. That's another relaxing herb that has a long history of use with mothers. So that's also pretty easy to grow. Pineapple weed, which is a wild chamomile, sometimes, well, at least we can find that around here. And that has a nice kind of appley smell, and you can dry that and make tea from that as well. And the Nursing Mother's Herbal, I think she has that as possibly being a galactagogue. So, so there's things all around us we can find and grow. And I do like the idea of maybe of either growing your own nettles or finding where they grow, even though we don't think of them as being a desirable plant, but they're so nutritious that
Right.
it wouldn't be
It,
bad to do that. Yeah.
so
And
if we could, if well, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. What were you going to say?
um, I don't know, we were talking about nettles, growing those. And I mean, oats too, if you had a little bit of a space, you could easily probably grow, just grow some oats, you know,
I don't know
you
what's
know.
causing that sound. Something's.
Oh, sorry. It's one of I'm getting notifications. Sorry. And you're probably hearing a beep. Um, but yeah, if you just had some ground you could dig up and sprinkle oats, and even just if you live in an agricultural area, even what the horses eat, sow it on the ground, and it's a grass. It will grow pretty easily. So that could just be, you know
You mean like
it's
for the
empower.
oat leaf as tea, as it were?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
Another
then if you could
another
water the oat
I'm
too.
sorry. Another one that grows really easily is borage, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
a little bit of fresh borage leaves in your salad or as a tea is so wonderful. It's so tasty and it's so relaxing. You say that growing or being in contact with growth or with greens or with gardening is somehow good for
Hmm.
you. What is it that you mean exactly? Or can you give an example of how that has helped you?
Well, it I think it connects you to the earth. I think a lot of times we're separated from the earth and the growing seasons. I think we don't always realize that, when you grow something, it has its own seasons. In the early times of the year, like now, we're going to be eating things like the dandelion greens, and the nettles will be coming up. But we wouldn't necessarily eat them, come September and October. We would eat them now. But you'll see all these cycles, and you'll see how the earth goes through cycles. And as women, we go through cycles, and it just, in some ways, it's all related. I think it helps us connect to ourselves and to the earth, which we're a part of, which feeds us and is important to our, whole humanity's survival. And I think you just feel good being able to get outside and be able to grow things or watch things grow. And you notice so many things. It kind of makes you slow down a little bit too. And you notice, you
Right,
notice things. Yeah.
right. As you were talking, I just thought about how the words nature and nurture are so connected.
Hmm. Yeah.
And that when we grow plants, we are nurturing them in a sense. We're giving them water, we're taking care that they have enough sun, we're tending to their needs, so we're nurturing what later becomes our nurturement, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it's a kind of a relationship there. Yeah, I grew up in Southern California and I had no access to anything but seeing people mowing the lawn and my next door neighbor whose mother gave her the task of pulling up the dandelions.
Hmm.
So I'd sit with her and we'd pull up the dandelions, and those were the weeds, you had to get rid of them. And I think for a lot of people that's just kind of their contact, is that you keep nature in its place. And then we get
Hmm.
all of these weird things in our heads like dandelions are bad. Like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
really hard to get over that for a lot of people. Just that sense of they're weeds, you get rid of them. You don't
Hmm.
invite them in and find out. But dandelions are, of course, some of our most potent medicine. And actually, if you buy dandelion root as an herb, it's quite expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. And it has so many uses. And I think how it relates, to people too. There are so many things we overlook, and I think every person has value, but every plant has value, and that can remind us, kind of both ways, not to overlook things, and see that some of those things we're stepping over literally outside. They
Right?
have
We're
value.
not noticing. We're not noticing.
Yeah. Yeah,
For,
and things that we want to get rid of, maybe we shouldn't be getting rid of. Maybe we should be thinking, how can this be useful? How can this help our families, help our lives, and
so
and also
talking
help us be
about
good.
weeds. I have a colleague who is a minister, and he works in missionaries in Africa. The name of the country will come to me. And the mothers were complaining of having too little milk, and they were impoverished. And he was happening to, he was looking around the web and, just gleaning information. And he realized that the moringa tree, the horseradish tree, grows wild there as weeds. So,
Yes.
so he made these women aware of the fact that these trees that they're pulling up because they're considered weeds actually are, some of the most nutritious food in the world, that we are now selling and buying to high prices in the United States to support our milk supply. And these women began to eat it and to obviously get healthy and to have a higher milk supply. But that's just how we lose our traditions. You would think that people living in an area where the moringa tree grows wild, that they would understand that this is a really potent form of nutrition and also medicine, how easily that just gets lost. So that's a comparison. We lose our understanding for dandelions, right? And they lose their understanding for the moringa tree. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I think that's also shows how important it is for us to, even if we just grow a few things, it helps us retain and gain more of that lost knowledge that we'll pass on to our own children. Maybe you're growing some fennel and dill, and the child sees their mother using this, and maybe they'll remember that too someday. They may not remember the exact plant, but they'll remember, something, my mom used plants to help with her supply, and it might spark some more interest.
And it tasted good. It introduces new flavors to the kitchen, so the children become used to eating a variety of more potent and natural flavors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, children, they love herbs. They love to do things with them and make teas and all sorts of things. So
they also pick up on the mother's sense of empowerment and her sense of pleasure with the fact that she can create a little bit of food and a little bit of her own herbal garden that's supporting her milk supply, but also the health, because anything that supports your milk supply supports your health.
Yes. Yep. And they're not separate from each other. To keep our mom healthy, that's going to help keep our babies healthy.
If you'd like to, we could continue to do this and like I can go out and get I think I'm going to grow a yam, and a sweet potato and compare the two. So I can start growing things, take some photos and get together and talk, about it. And
yeah, I may try to grow some things that I haven't tried before too. I mean, I'm not nursing anyone anymore. It's been a while now, but but I could still, grow some of those herbs that I haven't tried before. And
that might be a really interesting thing for lactation consultants to do.
Yeah.
I think if IBCLCs were to experiment with a lactogenic diet and with growing these herbs and with just themselves trying to eat this way and seeing how that affects them, maybe how it regulates their hormones, stabilizes their own energy, improves their health in some ways, that they could then go, when the mother starts talking about it, they would be talking themselves from a place of experience.
Yes. Yeah. And I think the more we experience it, when we really know it, it makes sense, and we really know it works and how it works. It's easy to read something and say, oh, you use this herb for this, but when you really used it, you really know.
Yeah.
You really know it works. Yeah. And the more you spend time with an herb and use it, you really get to know it.
That's right.
And you develop a relationship with it, which we should with our food too. We are disconnected from our food as well. So
we are disconnected from our food. That's really, I think we feel, as a society, we feel very disconnected from the things that supported us in generations past. And we expect modern medicine to step up, and modern, genetically, whatever foods are being prepared to step up and fill that gap. So I don't need to be connected to nature because now modern medicine is going to take over that role and give me pills, so I don't have to bother with that stuff. And as we're learning more and more, that's just not how it's happening for most people on the level of the health conditions that most people experience. I think modern medicine is fantastic when it comes to rare diseases and rare surgical procedures. But for the stuff that most people are dealing with in daily life, it causes a lot of side effects. And there, the
Yeah.
use of food and herbs is much better.
Yes. Yes. We should try to support our health as much as possible through our foods. And in general, we could do a lot better in those areas. And even, that's not, I know you talked about like the bone broth and, gelatinous,
That's right,
when you cook down bones, not everyone will have the chance to raise their own animals to eat. But, years ago, a friend of mine, we raised chickens together and we, and we did the whole process from raising them to the freezer. And, it might not be something I would always choose to do, but I did learn a lot. You really do. You do get a connection to your food that way. And a lot of people, they don't understand even where their meat comes from. And it did cost more to do that, but it was definitely,
very
healthier meat. Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah, we have some chickens now. We haven't decided if we're going to process them or not. It's hard to do, right, when you have pets, but
Yeah.
But it is possible to get chicken feet online, organically grown chicken feet, and that's very gelatinous, and that's what women use that in Asia to promote their milk supply. And we don't really have, and they emphasize that if you eat these gelatinous foods, like in your teens, 20s, and 30s, that you will have better joints, better bone health in your age, and better skin. So when we look at, it's funny how our science always looks at these beautiful Asian women and, the low levels of menopausal problems and osteoporosis and, the whole package. And we think, oh, is it because they eat soy? Is it because they eat, one of these things? When if you listen to them, they will tell us it's the gelatinous foods that we eat in concentrated amounts when we're young.
Yeah. Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
I learned that a little late, so.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's not typical in our society to eat all those foods now.
I think so, and I think it's fun that you're in your car.
Yes. Yeah. Well, my girls we have a dance competition today, and I knew that they were going to be all over the place getting themselves ready. So I removed myself from that.